Okay, so we have connected the flashlight to the rail on the gun, so it's all connected up, looking good. We've done the interior of the bulb and the reflector and all that. So next thing I want to do is do the pressure switch, or the light switch that's connected to a cord. Now, originally I was going to do this one. I guess the way this one works is there is an adhesive strip underneath, and it sticks to the rail of the gun. Honestly, it's not that interesting. So I found this one, and I think I like this better because you can see that this one sits on the rail. It actually clamps to the rail, so it's not a you don't have to stick it down, and I think it just visually looks different. It looks better, and I kind of like it. So I like this big button over here. I don't know if this knob actually turns. It doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna go with this. So let's go ahead and just make that. So I gotta decide where I'm gonna hide my rail covers. So right click, hide selection. Okay, so I don't know. Usually if it's a right-handed guy, he's got his left arm coming up to hold the forearm of the rifle here, and then depending on how he grips the rifle, his thumb could actually be up and over the top of the top rail here. I think they call it a C clamp or something like that. If you imagine his hand forming the letter C with his thumb up here curving down to the rest of his fingers on the bottom. So that switch would be right up in here. Okay. So I think we'll go with that. Now there's some tactical sort of operator type guys have lasers and stuff. I don't think I'm going to do a laser. So I think once we have the switch on there and the cord, I think that'll be good for this gun. You don't want to overdo things. So I think that'll be good. We'll put the switch up top and call it good. This rifle is, the barrel's not that long. Usually I think they're about 14.5 to 16 inches long. This one is a shorter barrel gun, so you can imagine that if someone was holding it, that if they have their arm sort of stretched out to the front, it would actually reach pretty far down the gun. Versus if it was a longer barrel like this one, and this rail was that long, maybe you wouldn't put it way up front like I'm gonna do here. You'd put it maybe further back. So, but because this is a short barreled rifle, I think we'll be fine putting it up top. Okay, so let me see here. I'm going to go into my quad rail. Or actually, since we didn't model the quad rail together, you're not going to have this if you are following along. So we can just model it from scratch here with a plane. So I'm going to make a plane. Whatever. Let's move it and put it over this guy here. Now I want to center. I'm going to turn on my, I did not have a center line. Okay, no problem. Just want to center it over the rail, and then I'm going to just get rid of all the segments. and make this the width of that flat part of the rail. And maybe just drop it down. Something like that. Okay, so let's convert this to an editable poly. Go into edge mode. And actually what I'm going to do, now I think about it, if I just select these two edges and hit connect, it's going to split it in half. And that way, if I go to polygon and delete this half, I can then put a symmetry on. So symmetry, and it's going to mirror over to the other side. Okay, so I'm going to extrude this down, shift and drag. So I'm just sort of following the slope of the rail and then pull it down. Now, if I go to polygon mode, I just want to push this up against the rail. You know, something like that. And then take this and pull it down. Now, let's look at how far. I guess it doesn't really go too far down. So something like that. Okay, so now we've traced out the shape of the rail, and now we just need to come back over the top. Now, before I do any more, what I'm going to do is just go to polygon mode and select everything, or I could have gone to element, and I'm going to tell it to flip my normals so that it's just going to reverse the direction of the faces, so that when I extrude back up and around, they'll be facing the right way. So let's go back to edge mode and decide how thick we want this to be. And then we're going to come up and over. Now my guess is this is too wide here, so I'm going to bring this back in. So right now I'm just concerned about just the shape of it coming up and over. I'm not putting in all this detail just yet. Just want to lay out the basic foundational shape here. So let's go into edge mode, bring this up, and then extrude this over. And I'm going to hit S to turn on my snapping, which is going to turn on the snapping here. If you right click on it, just make sure vertex is selected. And I'm going to drag the x-axis and snap that point there, just so that these are lined up for when I use my symmetry. Okay, we get something like that. So let me see if I like what's going on here. It seems that the top is a little higher. Oops, turn off my snaps. Shortcut is S. So something like that. And what I might actually do, just to speed up the workflow a little bit, I'm going to select the rail and this piece, and I'm going to isolate them. Okay. I feel like this is a little thinner this way. Okay. Turn my wireframe off. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, so I think that'll be good. Now, it's hard to tell how many rail sections long this is. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just eyeball it till it looks good. So let's go to vertex mode here and just select these, and maybe I don't know, maybe about that long. And on this side, if we pull it out to here, now I gotta make sure when I end my isolator, we gotta make sure. Yep, see, I'm bumping into that, so maybe I pull this back to this guy here. And if I want this longer, I can just lengthen this one. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Okay, so let's go into edge mode and just start bridging these together. Okay, do the same on this side. Okay, now we can think about putting in this sort of this lip here. And I'm going to go find some more images. I thought I could get away with just the one. I probably could, but I'm going to find a couple more real fast, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so we found a whole bunch of images of this component. So as you can see, there's a really thin little thing here. See if I can make this bigger. And right in there. So this front part here rises up. It's really thin, so we'll throw that on there real quick. And that, I believe, well, let me see. Which side would that be? So it's the side furthest from the connection point. So if we had our cord coming in and around and connecting here, so that part would be over here. Okay, so let's do a swift loop here, and then maybe another one. It sort of stops 2/3 of the way down. So something like that. And then if we go to polygon, this, do an extrude, and I'll call that okay. Now obviously here we want this open, and we want this. Let's get our snapping turned on and just snap it straight. And let's turn my snapping off. Actually, let me go back to vertex. And maybe pull this out. Now let's see how we want to. So it's really thin here. It's wider here than here. So let's take this, move it back. Let's move it down here. Okay, something like that. Okay, so we'll just lay that out for now. And then we have kind of the same thing but wider over here. And I guess we can see if we can get it from a different angle. Yeah, so that's all that really is. Now, what we got to be careful of, seems like there's a raised up section right here. So I guess we should place a cylinder where this thing is going to be. So let's go ahead and create a cylinder. And I don't need 5 height segments, so I'm just going to get that to 1 and 18 subdivisions. What is this? So 1, 2, 3. There's probably a 4th. Yeah, I'd say there's 4. So we need just a multiple of 4 in our cylinder. So right now we're at 18. I could go 20. Yeah, let's go 20. Okay. And let's just drop the height a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and isolate these 3 just to make things easier. F4 to turn on wireframe, S to turn on snapping, and I'm just going to snap my sphere, my cylinder, to the center line of this object. Turn off my snapping, move this forward, come in here and decrease the radius and the height. So it's pretty wide. It's wider than the top of this thing. So now again, I don't know, mine feels it feels too wide. Because if I have to widen this button even more, that just feels crazy. Crazy big. So let's, if we said there, and then took this and just made it narrower like that, and then what I could actually do is if I go in here, actually hold on, yeah, I guess I could. So if I just swift loop this just to hold a little bit more of the detail, and let's take this, oops, go, I don't know, something like that. So let's decide where this button is going to be. So if we put it right around here, it's not that much gap from the edge of that button to the end of this thing. So let's, and no, yeah, so I think that'll be fine. And then I'm just going to define where that end piece is and how wide it is. So it's probably about that wide, more or less. This little bump out here, I feel like I should start it so let's swift loop this right about there. And then go to polygon. Select those, do an extrude. Okay. Delete these. Go in edge mode, select these edges. Hit S to turn snapping on. And find a good angle to get this to snap to here. Just had it. Come on. There we go. Okay, so now we need to, actually, you know what? Let me, no, you know what? That was right. That was right. So there we go. So I gotta decide how far does this intersect with the button or whatnot. We can worry about that a little bit later. Go in edge mode, save my file here. So, okay, actually, it's more like this. And what I'm going to do is actually extrude, because if I look at it, I'm just going to extrude this a little bit more. So polygon, and let's extrude this. Maybe not so high. And just straighten this out. Again, polygon over here. Delete. Okay. See what happens if I go in edge mode. Let's pull this out over here like this. Okay, not bad. Let's go polygon. Maybe raise that up a little bit. Okay. Now there is, this section right here is actually a pressure switch. So just like, did I lose it? Just like what this is here. It's an actual switch that you can press down on. I believe this is the same thing here. Okay, so, and then there's this piece here, which looks like that, or wait, yeah, this is kind of weird looking piece. We'll keep it simple. So the pressure pad starts right in front of the button. Swift loop, so start it right there. and it goes to right over here, so something like that. And then so this face here, this polygon here, is basically going to be the pressure switch. Okay. Now for this piece here, looks like more of the same, except it's sort of kicks off there. Again, I don't want to waste too much time on these things because they're kind of insignificant. So I'm just going to do another extrude. Maybe a little bit more. Delete. Take that one. Oops. Snap it. Come on. Man. There we go. And you know, I should probably put a swift loop right in here to mark the end of that button. Don't know why this got messed up. Okay, so edge mode. Move this over like this. It just kicks back that way. Let's go edge. All right. Yeah, I think that's good. Let's look at it with the symmetry on. So something to that effect. Let's put a Turbosmooth on here with isoline display. So obviously we don't have a lot of support for these, so we can go ahead and start thinking about that. Now the pressure switch, yeah, it's pretty simple. Polygon. So first thing I'm going to do is extrude it downward. Delete this one. And then go select that polygon again, and this time do an inset. And we just want a very tiny inset. Something like that. And then obviously hit OK. Obviously when you inset, you're going to get this thin face there. Delete it. Then select this edge. Turn on your snapping and snap it to this corner. And then polygon mode. Select this polygon and again extrude it upward, and not too much higher than the top of the thing here. Okay, so by doing that, instead of, now obviously we need some support edges here, so let's go ahead and put those in just so we can see this better. So I'm going to cut one here and one here, and maybe just one down the center. Okay. Yeah, my proportions just don't feel right. I think it might be too short, so let's go ahead and make it longer. So let's go to vertex. Gonna take all of this and move it back one rail section. And then bring this back here. And now that's starting to feel better. Okay, save. And I'm going to do a save as. And I want to increment my save. So I'm just going to swift loop here to put some support for that. And I'm going to swift loop this way. Add support that way. Okay, so yeah, these are harder and sharper now. Let's swift loop this here. And here. Just going to split this one down the middle. And maybe same thing here. Okay. And another support loop here. And here. Okay. So again, just making some adjustments. Just constantly just looking at the thing and seeing if I like what's going on. Let me go into my front view. Just going to shift this over just a little bit. Okay. Something like that. Take this, I'm just going to maybe drop it down just a hair. Okay. Let's grab this. Maybe pull this down too. Okay. Just gonna pull this out. So this is just tweaking. I tend to do a lot of that, so let's see how we look now. I think it'll be fine. Maybe move this in a little bit, or even down a little bit. and straighten that back out. Maybe bring it back up. Yeah, I'll call that good enough. Okay. So it looks like we need a support edge right in here. So we'll swift loop and cut that in there. There we go. Looks like we may have to split this something like here. And then take this, make sure we got just what we wanted. And maybe those ones underneath. And just curve this around. So we'll try to curve this around the button. Or the knob, whatever that thing is. Okay, something like that. Just to make it look like it belongs in there. And I suppose we could go a little bit further. Let's see. Polygon. Let's take this. And then this. And do that. Go in edge mode. And push this back here. Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay. So yeah, this is bugging me a little bit, so I'm just going to grab these and just shift them forward. Okay. And now I gotta reopen Chrome here real quick. And where is that? There it is. Okay, so now we can detail this button. Let's get an outer rim with detailing on the outside here, and I think we decided there were 4 of them, so I'll just do 4. So back in, let's grab this guy. Let's get out of that, grab him, and let's see. Let's put an edit poly on it. Polygon. And we'll do 2, I think, right? 2 at the northeast, south, and west. That should put 3 between each of them. Yep. And we'll just extrude this out. Get my extrude tool and just pull this out. You know, doesn't have to be too much. So I think mine are a little big, so I'm going to undo that and just do it again. Oh. Okay, so just pull them out. Not too much. Maybe that. Okay. And then they sort of curve over to meet with the rest of it. So what I'm going to do for that is get my move tool, grab my top polygon here, just pull this up a little bit. That's going to create that slope surface right there. And then we can do that sort of donut ring there. So shifted scale. not shift and scale. We're going to do an inset. Okay, so I'm just going to define how the width of this, which is the width of this section here, and then I'll come back and curve it. So let's go down. So extrude downward a little ways. All right, something like that. Then we'll inset again. Not much. Then we'll extrude again. And the top of the button at its peak is about, at least from what I can see here, is about level with the top of that outer ring. Maybe a tiny bit lower. So let's go ahead and just drop this down to here. And I'm just going to scale this in to almost, oops, wrong one, to almost a point here. Now I'm not going to merge these down to one yet, because if I do, I'm not going to be able to cut in my own edge loops here. So put that there, and then I'm just going to, actually I might use connect so that it's exactly centered. So I'm going to select one, ring it, and connect, and then move this up. Select this and this, ring, connect. Let's do this one first, this, and then this one, something like that. So we're getting that curve. Okay, so we gotta see where this is. Did I lose my inset? I think I might have. Did I undo too far? Okay, so no, not a problem. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I lost my inset. So I had done that little thin inset there, so I can just put one in and then lower this down like that. Okay, and then again, select an edge, ring it, and connect it. And then, oops, pull it up so we have this nice curve coming up there. If you want to have a little bit more detail there, what you can do is chamfer with 2 segments, and bring this down. It's so sensitive, but you could do something like that. Okay, so that's good. I'm just going to put a support loop right here just to hold that down there. And I'm going to toss a Turbosmooth on there. And a lot of times when I'm modeling stuff, I'll turn my Turbosmooth up to 2, even though I probably won't render this at 2. That'd be way too many polygons. 8,000 polygons in this little thing at 2 iterations. So if I go down to 1, basically takes it down to a quarter. So I'm at 2,000. That's manageable at 1 iteration. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. At least I'm looking at the button. Obviously here we need to do work. Okay, let's go with that for now. What I might do though is turn off this. Is grab this edge and just move it downward, and then maybe this one too, just to give us more of a curve inward there. Okay. Now, this, you can see a hard edge right there. Okay, so right here you can see this hard edge right there. So what I'm going to do is I need to support this edge right here. Now, I think, yeah, mine's not low enough. So what I'm going to do is just select all of these all the way around. Okay, and then as well as these. So double click when you can, just to not have to select every single edge manually. So if you got an edge loop, just double click. It's going to make your life a lot faster. And then also these up here. So I'm just going to control double click. Okay, and then just move this down. And then we can take this one and then, oops, and then move it down a little bit as well. And move this down. So that'll lower that. So now we can get our edge there. Now, here's the issue. We got a hard edge here, but on this ridge here, it's soft. It's smooth. So if I was to simply, you know, cut in a support edge like there, what I would get is that it would harden these as well. Okay, so we're going to have to do it a different way. Undo that. There we go. So what I'm going to do is you know, no, I'm looking at this. No, it's fine. What I'm going to do is, instead of just, I could just swift loop here, if I can get a good angle on it, like this. Okay. And again, we run this issue, but if I then take these two on every one of these, and then just lower them down, that should keep this relatively soft here. Okay. Now if you'll notice here, this is a little straight. I want to curve this some more, so I think I lowered it too much. So let's go around here. And let's see if I do it. No, I'd have to take these along for the ride. So if I pull these up like this, I'm starting to get that curve back right in there. There we go. See how that's nicely curved now. We got the hardened edge across here, and we don't have that hardening of the edge on here. So that's what we wanted. Now obviously the bottom is bugging me, so I'm going to just select that polygon on the bottom. And here, let's isolate this. Okay, so just get your scale tool, hold on shift, scale it. I keep making this mistake. It's Maya's fault, because that actually works in Maya. Inset. Autodesk should probably change that. It's so much faster to inset just by scaling. Anyway, so we'll do that, and then we can actually just delete that to get rid of that polygon and not have to worry about extruding inwards, because you're not going to see any of this stuff here. So this looks like, now it looks like it's cutting into this thing. Let me get another view. Yeah, it looks like it is. Honestly, I don't think it's worth the time and the aggravation to cut into this main piece here to try to get that to curve for such a minor thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to harden the edges. I'm going to put a swift loop support edge right here. Now the problem is, you can see what it's doing. That's because these edges down here are making it act that way. So I'm going to just scale this flat. Oh, I think you can make, no, can't make planar that way. Let's try Z. So if you do it on Z, up here, it's just going to snap them all to the same Z value. And then what I can do is then just go around this whole thing and do a chamfer. Now, yeah, we can go through and do one. Okay, so we'll get all these. Oh, here, double click, click, double click, click, double click. Okay, we'll get those, but then we also want to harden these up here. So I'm just going to double click these as well. And also we want to harden these. We don't want to harden this line across here. We want to harden this down here, because as you can see, those are kind of, actually, you know what? This seems like, I don't know. Depends on the angle. It seems like these going down might not be hardened actually, but the ones over here are, but the one there doesn't look like it is. So what I can do is actually deselect this, wrong one, deselect that and this, and then select this and this, and then across here. Now we may run into some issues at these corners, but let's see. So let's deselect this, this, and this, select this, select this, let's go around, get this guy. All right, so I think we got them all. Looks like we accidentally selected these up here, so I'm just going to go through and deselect those and hope that I didn't deselect something that I did not want to deselect. Let's go around it. Looks like we're good. So again, in all these corners here we might have trouble, but let's see. So let's do a chamfer. Gonna do one segment, and I want to make it pretty small. Yeah, so you see what's going on there, but that's an easy fix. Okay, so I'll make it about that big. Just make sure we got everything. Hit OK. Let's just check the smoothing of it. So that looks pretty good, except for those artifacts in there. So let's go ahead and fix those. Now you can there's two ways to do this. You can just select them both and do a weld, which I think will work. Yeah, let's do that. So it'll just weld them to the center point between the two. So if you draw a straight line between them and then cut that line in half, that's where the weld is going to put the single vertex. Weld, weld. Okay. Now you'll notice that I don't really use a lot of shortcuts in Max, just because I never got in the habit of shortcuts in Max. I do in Maya a lot, but in Max for some reason I don't even know what they are. So it'd certainly be worth taking the time to figure them out. It'll definitely speed up your workflow. But it's fine. I honestly use Maya way more than Max. I like to come in Max for some of my modeling tasks, because I think Max is a better modeler than Maya is. But Maya's become a lot better of a modeler in the years. I've been using Maya since version, I think, 2 or 3, something like that. And I've been using Max pretty much the same length of, actually I've been using Max a little bit longer. And Max has always been a better modeler than Maya. But Maya has kind of gotten better over the last couple decades. And Max's tools have been good enough that they've changed, but not too many, not too much. Not, at least not to the level that Maya's tools have been improved. So Maya is now acceptable as a modeler, but I still think Max does some things a little bit better. All right, let's see what we got. So that is looking like what we got, and I think that'll do. Yeah, only thing I might do here, you know, there's a little bit of a hard edge right there if you'd notice, but we can put that in. I think the center circle is a little too big, just proportionally, as you can see there. So let's go ahead and just scale it in. So let's go back to vertex here and just select these. And I'm just going to weld them down to 1 point. And then as usual, what I do is go into edge mode, select every other edge, and delete them, so we reduce our poly count that way. So vertex, select that center vertex, control click the polygon button. It's going to convert it to a polygon selection. Hit grow until the edge of this, actually, yeah, let's go to there. No, let's grow it further. Let's grow it to there. And then we're going to scale it, but we're going to scale it on the YX plane. So scale it in something like that. Okay, so now we can go into edge mode, select this, scale that in. And then we can actually put in that, now that I looked at it closer, it looks like a hard edge here and a hard edge on this inner one here with a slight inward slope. So again, maybe I'll take this one and just sink it down here so that I can adjust this one and then get my move tool down there. And then I'm going to just take these two and chamfer. Okay, so something like that, maybe down a little bit. Smooth it, and let's see what we have. Okay. So then the other thing, so proportionally, I think I like this better. Then the button itself looks too much. I imagine that this is a button that goes up and down, and my guess is that it's waterproof, so it is connected. It's probably just a rubberized sort of coating over a button, so it probably is connected to the rest of this thing. But the transition here is just it's a little too soft for me here, so I'm just going to let's go back to polygon. I'm going to shrink back down to the edge of the button here. I'm going to scale this in, and I'm going to do an extrude and just push it upward just a bit. So extrude is obviously not very precise. So what I do is sometimes I'll just do an extrude and then go to my move tool, and then I can move it to where I want it to be instead of trying to do it with the extrude tool itself. So if I move that to there and then get this edge in here, just get the whole edge loop and chamfer that, or get the chamfer button, and I think that might work better. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, so let's end our isolation here. Whoa. And there we go. Now, I might have to move this forward or something. It looks like, yeah, so instead of it being north, east, south, and west, that way it's sort of at a diagonal. So I'm just going to rotate this 45 degrees. Make sure that your angle snap is on, and you just rotate until we get to 45. There we go. So I might just move this forward a little bit. Okay. And let's go into this and get our edge. And I'm just going to take this series of edges. Actually, I might do it in polygon mode here. Just slide these over. Okay. Now obviously we have to then fix some of this stuff here. I think that'll work. Now, Yeah, I think that'll work. Now, is it too tall? Is the button seeming kind of tall? Let's go in here. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna shorten it, or, well, let's see. Since it is supposed to sort of intersect with this, stop it. There we go. We can just move it down. And then I might actually just widen it, but I'm not going to scale from the center because I don't want to get taller. So I'm just going to do it on the YX plane here. And then move it forward. So I generally don't like to just intersect things, but sometimes it works. So we're still getting that sort of curved thing here that we're getting there, although maybe not as extreme. And without having to sit there and try to model all that stuff together, we just intersect it and call it good, just because, again, this is a very minor part of this gun. So then what we're going to do, so now I'm just going to go through and do some chamfering. I'm not going to put words on the side. If I want to put text on the side, you can see that this is actually raised up. It's actually molded in there. I'm not going to waste my time with that. For one, I don't think the company, I don't know what the legalities are with that. I don't really care. It's not important. I could put anything on here, but if I want to do it, I can do it in textures. I'm not going to sit here and try to model that. So let's just clean up our edges over here and then work on the thing to connect the cable. So these edges are already pretty tight, but I like to hit everything with a chamfer just to really crisp up those edges. So let's go all the way around here now. Here. Okay, and I might run this one here just so that we don't get weird artifacting. Let's isolate. Okay, save our file. Yeah, some weirdness under there. I don't care. It's underneath, so I'm not going to worry about it. So select all that. We want this edge. So what that's going to do, actually, you know what? I'm going to undo that. We're going to chamfer that edge to a different level of chamfer than these. So I'm going to leave that in as it is for now. Okay, let's do this side. So go through, select this. This may need to go down here. Might have to do the same thing on this side here. Just because sometimes if you don't do that, you'll get weird artifacting here where it starts to pull away from this corner. So to avoid that, we'll just do that. And then this one. And again, we'll just go down here. Okay. Let's go ahead and see what we get. So I'm going to do a chamfer with one segment. Usually I'll do two, but this is already pretty well sharpened. So let's do something like that and take a look at it. Looks pretty good. Okay, looks like we got something going on here, which is probably, yep, just this needs to be welded. So I'm just going to target weld this to that, and that should eliminate that. Okay, just how sharp do we want? See, this is pretty soft here, so I'm actually not going to chamfer this all the way down there. Doesn't look like it needs it. One thing I will do is maybe run a swift loop here. And then see how we can might have to throw one down here as well to sharpen that lower edge there. Okay, so little tiny bit of artifacting there. I'm going to let it slide. And this we can deal with just by cutting in a support edge there. So it's going to hold that tighter. All right, so honestly, let's go ahead and look at this. Honestly, I'm happy to call this good on this. Let's go ahead and get our material editor, and I'm going to put the same dark color on there because I think they're always black. So I'm going to assign this material, see how that looks. So once it's all sort of blended in with the gun, it looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to take off these Turbosmooth. I'm just going to go ahead and delete these Turbosmooths just because this one I guess I can leave on there because I got to work on the cable thing. Leaving a bunch of Turbosmooths on just increases the poly count and makes things unreasonable, so I can just turn off that one. Now what I also want to try to do here is above my symmetry I'm going to add an edit poly just so that whatever I do happens on the entire object, not just half of it. And then I'm going to go here to element, select it, clear all the shading smoothing groups, and then put that on a single one. And let's do the same with this guy. Element, select the whole thing, clear all, put them on one. Okay, so gives it that somewhat smooth look without actually smoothing it. Okay. All right, so we will then start on the connector here. Let me see if I can find it from a better angle. Guess it's so what I'm thinking here is to leave out these, I don't know what you call them, slats. And I'm not leaving them out because they're difficult to do. It's very easy to do. It's a simple extrusion outward, but they're just that's a lot of polygons, right? So for a very tiny detail, that's a real small piece of this whole thing. So I'm just gonna leave those out and just make a sort of box basically with softened corners, and then run this. Okay, basically what we have to do here is, of course, just attach that this connecting area here with the little slats. Just basically a box, and then run a cable to this connection right here. So pretty straightforward. I haven't decided if I want to maybe once I run the cable, have it taped down to the rail or not. I don't know yet. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's just start by getting all that stuff in there. So I'm going to make a new box, and all I did was control right click in the viewport here. So I'm not worried too much about the size of it right there. It's just, oops. I'm using a slightly different mouse. I'm using one of those vertical mice, so it's a little weird to get used to. Because I do have wrist issues from being on the computer all the time. So that's just one of those things. If you are somebody that does a lot of stuff on the computer, eventually it's going to start affecting your wrist. And so I'm trying to avoid having to get their carpal tunnel surgery. So this is how I'm trying to do it. So if my mouse movements are a little bit jerky, that's why. But I'm trying to get used to it. I really just want to throw it out the window, but I feel like I need to give it a fair shot. So let's go with it and see. So I'm just going to place this somewhere here. You notice that I zeroed out my X value, which is going to center it on the grid in the left and right, which is what I need here. So let's just get this into position. Now let me look at this again. Yeah, it's pretty. It's not very tall. It's a very flat box, so I could probably scale it down a little bit. And again, let's look at it. So it connects right below that upper lip there. So let's, something like this. I don't really want to spend an hour trying to get this thing perfect. It does not need to be. It is such a minor detail. If you're a perfectionist, by all means. Okay, so let's go ahead and convert this to an editable poly and open this up here. And you don't need to open this up. Use 1, 2, 3, 4. I just like to have it open as a visual. I don't use it to select my mode. I use 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, 5 is element. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I like to have it open. It's a quick way to see. You can also look down here, right? So if I'm in edge mode, I could also look down here. But I just gotten used to having that open there. All right, I'm going to go to 4, get to a polygon. And we're just going to narrow this down a little bit, something like that. Might be a little long. So let's go ahead. Oops. Let's go ahead and move this forward. By the way, if my audio sounds a little different, I am using a new microphone, so that is probably why. Okay, so something like that. I don't know. Just make it look good. I don't want to spend forever on this. So I'm going to select one of these edges here, do a ring, and let's go ahead and just do a chamfer just to round off those corners. So, how round we want it and how many, something like that. Make this a little bit bigger. I don't know. Maybe not as big actually. So let's do something like that. Okay. Again, how serious you want to get with this is entirely up to you. I really don't want to get very serious about it, so this is still looking kind of long to me, so I'm gonna maybe, I don't know, something like that. Okay. All right, so now we have that. So essentially it's just a hole in this end. What I might do though is give it a little lip at the front there. So let's go ahead and get our Swift loop here and hit that right there. And then we can hit 4. Oh, get out of Swift loop. Hit 4 to go into polygon. Click on one. Shift click the one next to it, and it's going to select the loop. And let's do an extrude. Let's go on the options, and let's zero this back out now. Let me see here. See, it's not going the right way. By local normal is what you want. And then, yeah, there we go. So if you're having problems, make sure you have it set to local normal. And each each face is going to extrude outward on its normal, which is going to give you the effect that you want. So there's different modes that you can use. So I'm going to, I don't want too much of it. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so call that good. Hit 2, edge mode, double click, and then control double click, control double click. And we're just going to chamfer these. Now, obviously, it remembers the last chamfer we did. I'm going to drop it to 1 and bring this way down so that it's not so big. Okay, so that'll be that. And then let's go into face mode here. Here. And let's just do an inset. Just to give us that. No, did I do it twice? No, I didn't. Okay. So, and then we can go ahead. Oh, got to be in edge mode. And do another chamfer. And this one I might make a little bit bigger. This thing is really sensitive, which is kind of annoying, but not too bad. Okay. All right, so something like that. Again, if you're feeling up to it, you can go ahead and put those slats in. I don't think it's worth it, honestly. This is still looking kind of big to me. I don't know. Maybe if I make it a little bit longer, but then go and just scale the entire thing in. Maybe even more. Something like that. I don't know. Okay. I'm looking at the proportions here. I might have gotten the width of this area here a little too long in mine. But again, this is where you got to decide is how important is this to get perfect? Maybe I don't know, something like that. So I go back and forth. It is what it is. One thing I've learned in working in this type of stuff is if you're trying to get things perfect, it's kind of a waste of time unless there's a very good reason to do that. Right? So you just work it. Ooh. See, I'm trying to use Maya. Shortcut there was shift and scale to extrude in, but that's a Maya thing. I go back and forth, so that can be a problem sometimes. What I need to do is just do an inset. And you see how that's... So what I'll do is I'll inset it. Come on. I'll inset it a little bit and then use my scale just on its own to scale this in. So it's not the prettiest thing, but it's okay. Then what I'm going to do is go into edge mode. And let's go ahead and select this. I'm going to do a ring selection. And let's do one down here as well. Control click that and ring. And we're just going to connect, which is going to split this in half. And actually what we could have done, maybe instead of in half, let's do 3. Just to give us more geometry to make that circle. And, I'm kind of wasting polygons here, but that's all right. Still less than, what are we at here? We're still at about, no, that's not correct. 372 polygons right now, so that's not too bad. If I'd put those slats in, it would have been a lot higher than that. So this is fine. Let's regularize. Is that going to work? Yeah. So I have the regularize plugin, and I will... Which is something that, honestly, I don't know why Max does not have that already. Because it's really nice. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put an edge loop in here. So I'm going to select, go into edge mode. And ring select. And then connect. Oh, I don't want 3, I want 1. So let's go in here and go 1. Just so I like my circles. Anytime I make a circle in anything, I like it to have a north, south, east, and west edge cuts. The way I had it before, I was going to have a flat on the side of the circle. That's just a thing that I do. So Now let's go back and select. There we go. Oops. Okay, and then I can right click and go to regularize, which is going to make them perfectly circular. Now, if you're a Maya user, you will know that there's a circularize command, which does exactly the same thing. Very useful, because cutting holes and stuff is a very common thing to do. So being able to quickly just form whatever shape you have into a circle is very, very useful. Okay, so let's see how big we want this hole to be. And then the other thing I do is, before I extrude inward to make that the inside part of the hole, I will inset it again to create a lip of polygons around it. Okay, that just holds the structure of that circle a lot better. So maybe doesn't have to be very thick rim of polygons. It just needs to be there. Okay, so once I have that, then I can simply do an extrude and extrude this inward. Okay, what that allows me to do is select. So if I go to edge mode here, I can just double click. So going to double click, and that'll select those edges, and then we can chamfer this. Anytime I do a chamfer, and I notice that in Max now, this is by default. You can see that it says one segment, but if you're in Maya, you'll notice that this is actually two segments, right? There's two sides to that the chamfer. There's this center edge, and then there's two strips of polygons around it. That's two segments. But in Max, now that is the default is one, which I think is a very good idea, because this is what I always did. When I do this in Maya, I will always use two segments just to get this same effect here. Reason being that for things like UVs, this type of chamfering or beveling, if you're in Maya, allows for much cleaner UV edges. Okay, UVs, if you don't have these thin strips of poly, so this center line would be the UV border, and then it's on either side. It's got this next edge here, which gives you these little thin polys here, and those hold the textures very well. You don't get any texture stretching. Where if you just use one segment where you don't have this center line here, and then cut your UV seam right there, what's going to happen is one side is going to look fine, but the other side might get some weird stretching, and it's incredibly annoying. So I'm glad that they've made this now the default, and I can't go below that. So I don't know if there's a setting here to send it back to the old way, but I like this better. So this is very good. Okay, so that's that object there. So from this point, we can just run our cable here. So the other thing I like to do, now if you want, of course, you can just delete this back face here, save yourself some polygons. I tend not to do that so much now that, you know, as I do more stuff with 3D printing. What I find is that you want things that are sealed. So this right now is a sealed box, right? Meaning that it is a closed volume, I should say, and that's going to 3D print well without any problems. Now you can still 3D print stuff that aren't sealed if you know the little tricks and things, but save yourself the trouble and leave this sealed. So I'm just going to cut. Just going to do some cuts here. Why didn't that work? Let's try that again. Just go into vertex mode. Yeah, sometimes these tools are weird. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I'm not necessarily going to connect all of these to avoid n-gons, because, again, this is hidden but back there. And then this side, too, is just an n-gon here. You know, I could take the time, but I'm probably just going to do this one right here that cuts this in half and call that good. This doesn't really, in my experience, affect the 3D printing too much. So... and, you know, not that I'm going to 3D print this. I'm probably not. There's a lot of little things in here that probably wouldn't print very well. But just as a way that I work, I will, where possible, leave things sealed up. If it's not possible, you can always intersect objects to seal things off later. So that's fine as it is. So I'm going to leave that at that and call it good. And I just want to check to make sure that this thing smooths okay, which I'm pretty sure it will be. But if I go down to Turbosmooth, and I like to have the isoline display because it's less cluttered, you'll see that thing's smooth just fine out here. Don't smooth so well in there, but again, who cares, right? Nothing good's going on in there anyway, so that's fine. And then maybe just some holding edges here. So if I go to Swift Loop, I'm just going to put a holding edge here and just another one here, and that should be good. So 576 polys for that. It's not too bad, given right now we have a total of 687,000 in the entire scene, and that's including all these extra barrels and stuff that I have here. So on its own, it's not too bad. It's about 269,000 for the whole rifle. So, you know, you try to keep things as low as you can, but don't sacrifice quality, I guess. All right, so we have that now. And just, you know, before I forget, what I'm going to do is pause real quick and go find the link to that regularizer script. I found this from another modeler's channel, Aramus 3D, who is, if you want to do a lot of modeling in 3D Studio Max, that's the guy to watch. So I'll be right back with that link. Okay, so all I did is just regularize script 3ds Max, and the first link, loop regularizer, is right here, and this is where you get it. You just download this. You actually just drag it into your viewport, and you know, it's been a while since I did it, so but it's real quick and easy to do, and you can read up on it a little bit and see. I mean, it's a really powerful script. You can circularize anything that you need, and then also the channel that I got this from, Aramus 3D. This guy's really good. If you like to model in Max, this guy has just a wealth of knowledge that you can learn. So just a little shout out to him there, because he's the guy that I watch a lot of his videos. He's a really good hard surface modeler, and if you're into that type of stuff, very good channel to go to. So, and here's where he's talking about that script, because he does use it a lot, and he made a video talking about it. So that's a good channel to watch there. Okay. So now we need to get our cord that's going to run all the way down to the light. So let's go to standard primitives, and I am having a brain fart right now. Wait, here we go. Here it is. Okay, right there. The next button right here. And we want just a line. Okay, so I'm going to go in the top view, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to click over here. Now, nothing is aligned perfectly. I'm just going to click here, and if I want to be able to see it, there it is. I'm going to hold down Shift. You see, if I hold Shift, it constrains it. If I let go of Shift, it can be diagonal. If I hold down Shift, it's going to make it straight. I can either go that way. It's going to, snap to like 90-degree increments. So I'm going to make the first part of it perfectly straight. Okay, and the reason I do that is so that it doesn't collide with the sides of that hole there. So I might actually click once there to drop a point there, and I'm still holding down Shift, click again to drop another one, and click again to have, say, 4 in a row. That's going to allow me to really hold on to that straightness. Okay, and then I'm going to just click. It's very angular, which is fine for right now because I don't really want it to be, I'm not trying to mess with curvature just yet. So again, to get it in here, I need to go in straight. So I'm going to try to light it with the mouth of that as best I can. Then I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click a few times, and then right click to end it. So obviously, this is not even where it's supposed to be. It's sort of below where we're trying to be here. So I'm going to move this up here. So we got to do some adjusting here in 3D. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to, with the curve and this piece selected, and then also this piece, because really that's the only 3 pieces I need right now to set this up. I can then right click on here and isolate these, right? So now what I can do is go back in my top view and select my curve. I'm going to get rid of that turbo smooth on this guy here. So just before I go on here, eventually I'm going to take this into Maya, and Maya is where I'm going to set it up. I'm going to rig it, and it's actually going to be used in an animation I'm working on. So anytime I plan on exporting stuff to Maya, I try not to leave the turbo smooths on there, because the geometry you get when you export it as an FBX or as an OBJ turns out to not be very good. So, I'll use it to check things, but I try to get rid of it. And usually I'll forget some, but eventually I have to go in and piece by piece and find them. So to avoid that, I try to just get rid of them as soon as possible. So I'm going to go in here and select these vertices here, and I'm going to hit S to turn on snapping. And if you're not sure what you're snapping to, right click on this little snaps toggle 3 here, and I want to snap to vertex. By default, I believe it's on grid points, so I'm going to uncheck that and set it to vertex. And then also, if you haven't done this, enable axis constraints and display rubber band. You want to make sure that's turned on. Okay, and all that's going to do is it's going to allow me to snap to that center line of this object. All I got to do is start moving, and that yellow line is called a rubber band. So I move that to whatever point I want to snap my line to. So I'll just do that there. So now I know that's perfectly straight there, or perfectly aligned, I should say. So let's do the same thing on this side. I'm going to grab this and align it there so it's perfectly aligned. Now, obviously, we got to do the same in the side view. So that's this guy. And now in the side view, it's going to be a little different. So we're still on this part here, so we need to bring this way down here, and let's go ahead. I'm going to hit F3 to go into wireframe here, and I want this to align there. And then let's select these and go back in our side view, and these need to align with this piece here. And this is another reason that I cut that edge loop down the side of this object, if you remember. I cut this edge loop here. That allows me to snap to the center. So I can snap to the center in the up and down orientation or in the side to side. Okay, so we know now that our curve is aligned perfectly with this hole and that hole. Now we need to deal with the stuff that's happening in between. Okay, we can add and delete points as needed. I'm going to hit S to turn off snap. Okay, so now actually what I can do is end our isolation, just so that I have the rifle to align everything to, and start trying to lay these points down where they're sort of wrapping around that rifle. Okay, so you start out by just roughly putting it in, and then you can refine it later. That's kind of what I like about the curve system in Max, is it's very intuitive that way. I'm not messing with Bezier curves just yet, trying to get curvature while also trying to place points. I would rather just do them all jagged like this and then refine them as needed. Okay, so you see we're just trying to get this from this point, from this little switch here to the flashlight. Maybe pull this out a little bit. Okay, so that we want it to be kind of rigid coming out of this hole and that hole. And then it starts to bend. Now I may have to adjust this later in the one that I rigged, because there's a very good chance that this quad rail here, the mounting rail, might not be the same rail that ends up finally on this rifle. So there is that possibility, but I should be able to adjust this cable, or just make a new one if I need to. Okay, so just kind of working on it. And then at any time, once you're in the line here, if you go to rendering and where's enable in viewport, okay, it'll automatically extrude some polygons along that curve, which is another real nice feature that Max has that I wish Maya had, but it makes things much easier. Okay, so I'm going to go to segment and grab by the segment here. Okay. So something like that, it sort of comes up and across here. And then I like to turn this on and off because you can't see the points when this is on, although these cross loops here correspond to the point. So technically you kind of do know where the point is just by grabbing that there. Oh, I'm in segment mode still. So the point is usually where those are. So I guess you could just use that. Right now it's not too big a hassle because you are using a linear curve. But once you start adding curvature to this, it's not so easy. Then it's easier to just turn off the polygon display. All right, so let's go with something like that, at least for right now. I'm going to turn this off here. And what we can do is add another point between these two. So the way that you would do that is come down to refine. And if you click in here, just click and then right click, it's going to add that point. As you can see now, I can grab that point and refine my curve. Okay, so that is how you add those extra points. Okay, now don't add too many, I would say, because once we start adding curvature, if you got too many points, you're going to get a really sort of bumpy chord. So let's start trying to add a little bit of curve to these. So I can select a point right here, and I can either just click on fillet or fillet, however you want to pronounce it. You just click on that and then click and drag, which is really good. But the other way you can do it is right here next to fillet here. You can click and drag up or down. So either way, I tend to like this way. So let's curve that there. Click on this guy here, so you can see how quickly you can start to put curvature in your line here. And now that I'm looking at this, I kind of don't need it. At least I don't need it right here. So maybe if I move this, I'm just going to get rid of it. So I guess in the end, I didn't need that particular point. So let's get the fillet here and just click and drag. Click and drag, and then click and drag. So sometimes those points will meet right there, which is fine. Or you can just, and notice now you have Bezier handles on your curves, so you can adjust the curvature that way. You can just move this, and maybe even delete this guy, maybe. And then also, if you want to switch it back to a hard corner, you could just right click on here and go to corner, maybe. There we go, corner. Okay, so it no longer has that curve. And then I can come back into fillet here and do that. Okay, usually if points are this close, you want to maybe delete one of them. Okay, so, and you can start to mess with the actual Bezier handles. Okay. Pull this down. Okay, so this one is kind of in the way there, so let's get rid of that. Okay, this is why I try to work it a little bit before I get to this point, because this is kind of annoying having to mess with these handles. Generally, I try to avoid doing this, but sometimes it's got to be done. Okay, so let's look at what it looks like. Enabling viewport. So this is what we're getting here. Now, the cord is obviously too thin here. So all you got to do here is come to thickness, and you can increase it. Now, these two holes are probably not the same size, so you got to go with the smaller one. So that might be a little too thick there. And right in there is probably good. Okay, you can see that I'm having intersections here, so grab this and move it away here, and maybe move it up. And sometimes it won't, so I just rotate it. Oops. Okay, let's check that again. So a little bit better. I might want to actually make it touch somewhere, but not intersect too much. Okay. Again, don't spend too much time on stuff like that, because it's, unless there's a reason that, you know, if this is going to be shown up real super close, you don't want to waste too much time on stuff like that. Okay, so there, let me hit F4 to get rid of this. There's our line right there. Now, how again, you take the time to make this look the way that you want it to look. You could have like a zip tie coming through here onto that cord to hold it in place. I've seen people tape things, just get duct tape and tape it all down. Just depends on what you're trying to do. Okay. So, you can do it the way that you see best there. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's pretty much here. Let me put on the right color here, just so that it's in the sticker. Now, what was it? Where's my rubber? Got a really messy graph here, so I need to select my cord here, and I think I had a rubber somewhere. Is it over here? Maybe I didn't. Or, okay, it's probably this gunmetal. So just get a right click here and assign that. Click on, let's get out of vertex. Click on this guy and assign that. Okay. Okay, so I like this because everything else is very geometric, very, machine built. Whereas this cord, it's got a very organic shape to it. And that helps to sort of break that up there. So I kind of like that contrast. So I'm going to go with that. So that's what we're looking like. I think that's pretty much everything we need to do for the light. Okay. Now, moving forward from here, I'm thinking that I'm going to have to texture this rifle. And again, this may not be the final rail here for the rifle. I might change this up. So next time you see this, if I do change it up, maybe this cord will be slightly different too, just to account for the new position of the light or whatever it is. So that is what it looks like for now. I will be doing a substance designer tutorial on texturing this whole rifle with this light on there. I modeled this rifle before I thought of recording it for YouTube, so that's kind of annoying that I did that, because this would have been a good series of videos here. Actually started with a what do you call it? A CAD file of an AR-15 lower that I built off of, and it was done to, you know, real measurements and stuff, which honestly I didn't need this much detail. But as you can see, it's modeled inside and out. I didn't model the threads that are in here, but it's pretty much a fully modeled lower. So if I need to do some kind of visualization where everything comes apart and you see the inside of it, I could. Again, did not need to do that for my purposes. Maybe for the magwell here it makes sense, but for the inside here, didn't really make sense. But I did it anyway. And it's only about 19,000, and I don't necessarily plan to smooth this. I mean, I could for close-ups because you can see how jagged this is here. There's a Turbosmooth, I forgot. But if I do smooth it, that jacks that up to about 155,000, which is a lot. So, you know, unless I was really having a close-up, and how many iterates? So that's one iteration. If I did two, then I'd really be up there, 621 just in this. If I needed to come this close, I would turn this up. But for, you know, standard distance shots, don't need the Turbosmooth. I mean, this will hold up just fine for any, you know, from here on screen, even closer. It's fine. The big holes are pretty round. So, you know, you kind of have to decide. I was planning to not smooth this, but I wanted to be able to smooth it in the event I needed to. So even if you're modeling something to not be smoothed, it's good to put in the geometry needed to hold it smooth if you did put one on there. So let me put another Turbosmooth on there just to look again. Right, so you can see that it holds everything perfectly fine when smooth. All the edges stay crisp and sharp as needed. Okay, so I did put in the work to get those edges tight, even though I wasn't planning on it. Okay, now one of the mistakes that I did make, and this was before I realized that this was a very important thing. Remember I said before, when you do your chamfers, you want to do them with basically two segments, even though now it's defaults to one. When I started this in the version of Max that I started, one segment did not do it like it does it now. So a lot of these are like this corner right here. You can see these are not even on either side of that. So this was before I sort of started doing that. So when I set this up for UVing, I ran into some issues. Okay, so I had to make some adjustments in a later file, not this one here. So just bear that in mind. Always have those segments, because it makes it real easy for you to then cut UV seams and things like that. It makes it so much easier if you do it that way. So I'm glad to see that Autodesk has made that the default. Okay, so let's what are we here? Let's end our isolation, and I believe I did the same thing with the upper receiver here. It is pretty much modeled inside and out as well, because again, I got a CAD file and then just retopologized over the top of that, which, you know, I recommend that actually. If you're making something that's sort of real life object, I recommend going to find that CAD file and using that, just because if sort of accuracy is important to you, then that's something that I definitely advise. GrabCAD is one that I use quite a bit, and if you've seen my subway train tutorial, a lot of this I got some, like the wheel assembly on the bottom of the train. I found a CAD file. It's not accurate to the train that I was making, but I didn't need it to be. And I just use that. It speeds up the work, especially if you're making an actual animation yourself. The amount of work that you got to put into that, any shortcuts that you can use is always going to be a good thing. So this is a good place to get some of that stuff there. So let's type gun and see what we get. Okay, so if you need a Glock 19 barrel, there's one as a CAD file that you could just quickly retopologize that and get it looking real nice. That's definitely a legitimate way to make your objects. If you're somebody that just has to do it yourself to really test yourself, totally understandable, nothing wrong with that. But for me, just given this project I'm working on is a big project and I don't have the time to do that type of stuff. So any sort of way that I can get ahead, speed up, I will do. And a lot of times that means coming in here looking for CAD files. Now you got to be careful. Some of these CAD files are not very good, but some of them are. You can get some really good stuff. I don't use the CAD files directly because the geometry is horrible. So CAD files don't convert very well to polygons. It's I believe it's NURBS models that things work fine in the CAD program, but you bring them into poly to try to convert them to poly, then it doesn't work so well. So you don't get very nice geometry, and usually it's very heavy for no reason. So you got to go in there and retopologize. And I guess I don't really want to just take someone else's file and just use it as is. I'd like to at least do a little bit. But if it's just like a background rocket launcher, for example, it's in the background on a shelf or something like that, I guess you could throw that in and be fine with that. And then the other place, if you need, models, 3D Model Haven. This is another, if you're not aware of this yet, it's the same guys that make Texture Haven and HDRI Haven. They now have 3D Model Haven. And you got things like guns here. I believe I used this shotgun and as a background prop. I'm not going to use these for really close up. I actually modeled my own Glock that I also got the CAD file from GrabCAD. So I'm not going to just take this, but you could. I mean, honestly, there's nothing wrong with doing that. That's what these are for. So to save yourself some work. But I started this before this website was there. So there's all kinds of stuff. It's still pretty new, so there's not a whole lot going on here, but there's all kinds of stuff there if you need it. So I'll just give these guys a free advertisement because they are really good. They provide some really nice things for you. Okay, so let's get out of end isolate here. So I think I'm pretty much done with this rifle. Now that the light is on and everything's modeled and ready to go. So probably the next time we'll get into this project again is when I bring it into Substance Painter and start working on the textures. And then that should be an interesting series of videos. All right, so thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.